Okay, as per usual, got excited and got started before I started videoing. We are working on putting a Megasquirt plug and play, which is originally intended for a foxbody, in this 460 swapped F-150. Factory computer mounts there. We had to make access for the tuner cable to come through here. Notch there where the tuner cable plugs back into itself, and then a notch there for where the vacuum line goes for the internal map sensor. It sits in there just like so. And now I'm about to work on trying to modify inside the cab so that this fitting will clear, and so we can use all the factory mounting hardware and clamp this in place just like stock. Alright, so now I got this connector slimmed down where it doesn't take up so much space, not so bulky. And that spot that I scribbled in, the zigzag there, is what I've got a clearance. And then the computer will be able to bolt in and sit right there in factory location. Alright, so we now have, I don't know if I can get pointed up, have clearance for the connector where the wideband goes in, clearance for the vacuum line, for where the tuning cable plugs in, and then a hole for the wideband wiring and the tuner cable to go out so that it can plug in. Doesn't want the wideband permanently mounted, so while I'm installing and tuning everything, just gonna stick the wideband right there, and then once it's all said and done, I'll tuck the gauge up behind the dash or maybe move it over into the glove box or something. Or I may eventually talk him into just putting it there. We've got an extra one of these panels, so we could build a plate and just mount the gauge right there, because there's a empty spot or empty hole behind the dash. And then he'll still have his little pocket where he keeps his insurance card and everything. A few little steps at a time. And I realized in none of our other videos, I haven't really shown, but this is a 1990 F-150 that he bought in 91. I think it only had like 18,000 miles. The body's got over 300. This is a 1990 460 with a C6 out of a motorhome that we cut up with a set of mid-length headers, transdapt, swap motor mounts. And since it was from a motorhome, it had a funky oil cooler deal, so we had to relocate the oil filter up here because it wouldn't clear the cross member. A K&N filter that desperately needs cleaning and re-oiling. I'll get to that in the next couple days as well. But everything was hooked up, everything was working. I don't know that we're going to be able to keep the cruise control. I'm going to try, but who knows. Also working on a little sheet metal plate that I'm going to attach across this ridge and put some seam sealer, some seam sealer, silicone or something. We're going to be able to put that sheet right here so that it'll divert water down, just to help make sure we don't get any water in our computer, because it's not sealed as well as a factory one is. I don't know. I guess next thing, I've got to get this thing up in the air so that I can get under it and put this O2 sensor bung in, because the factory O2 bung in these was in a crossover pipe Well, I'll just show you when I get the truck in there. I'm not crawling under there now. But anyway, it's in a crossover pipe in between the pipes, so it's not in direct flow, which probably isn't going to get an accurate reading, so I'm not even going to attempt using it. Alright, so got our mid-length headers, they call them. Got the O2 for the wideband right here. And here, for those of you that haven't seen it before, is the terrible factory design for the factory O2 sensor. Screwed into a little bung that's wedged in between the pipes. I don't like it, but that's how it was factory, so that was how we had put it back together originally. But we've got loose bolt. Got the headers going into a Y, into a 3-inch MagnaFlow, all the way out the back. Alright, so he did decide on just mounting the wideband there rather than having it dangling. Got my tuning cable run up through the dash and poking out there so it'll reach the seat. And all our trimming and everything works. Computer goes in, fits in the factory bracket. Everything clears. The factory hold down will still bolt up. Gotta pull the slack back out of the tuner cable, but got our tuning cable and wideband run, computer mounted, and then you can't really see it, but the vacuum line hooked up on the bottom. Got to get a laptop with Tuner Studio because my computer died, and hook power to the wideband, install the oxygen sensor in the pipe, and then try and crank it tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. Well, that's a good sign. Wideband's coming on. When I turn the key, I can hear the fuel pump, which means the computer is telling the fuel pump to come on. And now we get this calibrated and double check over everything, get the O2 sensor mounted, and see what happens. So we've got our wideband sensor coming up. It's not the neatest, but it will work. Also working with the space we had due to the headers and everything else. Coming across, repurposed the factory vacuum line to the factory map sensor, flipped it around and have it going there to feed to the Megasquirt. Need to pick this up, tidy this up. This is the wideband wiring. I'll pick it up and tie it in with this factory harness stuff and neaten that up. Got our little water diverter shield test fitted, so now I gotta pull it back out, clean it, and just paint it black where it blends in. Everything hooked up. So I know the fuel pump primes, so now I've got to hook the laptop up and try to set base parameters and see if we can make it run. Well, all I know to do is give it a shot. Well, damn. Well, it's a good sign at least. Alright, after a few attempts off video to get it to crank, playing with some of the startup enrichment and cranking pulse, got it to crank and idle. Now the fun begins. I grabbed that today, and of course my stupid self forgot to charge it, so I got this dead useless GoPro. So while trying to tune and etc., I'm definitely not going to video as much of this as I originally wanted to, because that's a lot for one person to try and do. But it lives. Now, if any of you have messed with Megasquirt, you know what this is. This is where I've got the timing locked out, and we're about to verify that we've got the correct timing. That way we can start actually tuning. Probably not going to be able to see it. Right on. Close enough, right where we need it. Okay, now we skip to 10:30 at night when there's very, very little traffic on the road. So I can drive around in first and second gear around town, trying to work on some holes in the fuel map. Kind of hard to work on tuning the whole map when the traffic's bad. So first and second gear, just driving around town, because this truck has 273 gears, so the speedometer is not right, or the factory speedometer is not accurate. So anyway, do this and get some holes filled in, try and get this thing tuned up good where my granddad can drive it when I go back to work next week. Just out cruising around in second gear, burning gas and adjusting the tune. Definitely gonna have to go and manually smooth and like manually fill in a few cells, because this thing has a really, really loose stall converter. So watch what happens, like, you know, flipping the throttle trying to hit a spot. Well, damn, going around the turn. But just cruising along, and I blip the throttle. Yeah, loose converter makes for pain in the butt to hit all the spots. Okay, so the beginning of day 3. Let's see if I get lucky with a true cold start. Still needs a little work, but not too bad for a guy that doesn't really know what he's doing. Kind of learning as I go. She's not getting an actual like good wash because the paint's pretty shot. This paint was done when I was 16 or 17. Oh, also that's got to be addressed when we get to redoing paint on this in the hopefully near future. But anyway, this thing has been painted for 17 or 18 years, and it's starting to really show its age. I mean, it's been a work truck still. Wasn't taken really good care of. So all things considered, definitely can't, you know, fault the guy that painted it for us. But I'm just literally taking a rag and water hose and wiping it off, just because there was mold all over everything. And I couldn't hardly see out of the windows. But, let me see. When it was done, it was a really pretty color. It's like a black base with a bunch of pearls and metal flake. I can't talk, sorry. Anyway, it'll probably go back something similar. Maybe just a tad, teeny tiny bit of red pearl in the paint next time, so that it goes with the wine red factory interior. I'm also currently trying to find somewhere along the panhandle of Florida or South Alabama to get the seat redone, because this is the original seat, so it's of course in pretty rough shape, but I want it redone in a similar to factory material, keep the armrest. The material on the seats is the same as this on the door panel, and you know, no big deal if we can't get that same material. I'll just get 2 little pieces from whoever covers it and recover that section of the door panels. And we have new carpet in a box. No point in putting it in right now. And we have a dash out of a parts truck to swap in, because if you're familiar with these trucks, you know sometimes the dashes just start to go to crap. And this one definitely has. All these, like the whole thing rattles and squeaks when you go down a bumpy road. Headliner's still in excellent condition, all that, so we have a dash to swap, we have carpet for it. If anybody knows somewhere good to get seat upholstery done, like I said, South Alabama, Panhandle of Florida, pretty much anywhere between Montgomery, Panama City, and Mobile. Anybody in that area, you know, send me some recommendations. I'll call around and check. Anyway, me finish wiping this down and getting some of this funk off of it, and then go drive it around some more. Can't forget an important step. Of course, just eyeballing this because we're not professionals. And yeah, I know, black doesn't show up very obvious, but it kind of goes with his whole theme on the truck. Subtle, but there. Okay, so today did not quite go as planned. I was driving the truck around, you know, making sure drivability parts on the tune were good. I checked the rear diff, added maybe 1/3 of a quart of fluid to it because it was just a tiny bit low, which we know we've got a leaky axle seal. But we had been hearing some noise and thought that it might have been the clutches in the rear end. Well, comes to find out, I was about a mile from the house today and the rear brakes tried to lock up. So being a mile from the house and had no trailer available at the moment, just kind of used big block torque and drove that last mile, which there's nothing visibly broken, but the brakes were so hot that they were smoking when I pulled back up. Sprayed it down with the water hose, got it cooled back off for fear that the leaky axle seal on this side, that there was grease or oil, in the brakes, and didn't want it to possibly catch fire. So hosed everything down, got them cooled off, didn't really care if I shattered anything or damaged it with the water. This is a 273 geared rear end that we swapped in searching for gas mileage. The truck originally had 355s in it, and it had 355s when we first did the big block swap. We put in the 273s and it only gained like 1, maybe 1.5 miles to the gallon, and took all the fun out of it basically. So we have another 355 rear end that we were debating on putting in, and at this point I think we're just going to go ahead and refresh that axle, put new brakes on it. I'm going to move this limited slip unit because this is actually one that I built. It's a factory Ford track lock, but it's re-shimmed and tightened up Same way I do a lot of our race cars and stuff like that we don't weld. And we'll put it in here. And some other random details that I remembered, you know, while I was checking the rear end earlier, or checking the fluid earlier today. Oh, there's my cat Waffles. We put a sway bar on the truck off of a 4-wheel drive. And the truck has air shocks because, again, as you can tell by the tailgate and the bed, my granddad does still use this as a work truck. That mark is from a skill saw about a month and a half after it got painted. He was using it as a sawhorse and ripping plywood. This is from loading something in here with his tractor and he hit it with the bucket, so whatever. But there is the fitting to air up the air shocks. So anyway, this project's going to be on hold for a little while because my granddad, you know, like I said, it's his truck. He is 76. We're going to work on it as we can, but I've got to go back to work next week. So I'm not sure when we're going to be able to finish it. And maybe this jumble of videos from the last 3 days is watchable. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Forgot to mention that drivability wise, like tuning's going well, truck drives good. We're gonna go through and replace most of the braking system. The master cylinder has a little bit of a leak, so we have one for it already. But I was also going to point out, just in case anybody wondered why I decided to do this with the tuning cable. Basically, there's a big open void in the back of the dash. So my plan is to, once I get done and when I'm not using this, just going to tuck it up, which I don't have a screwdriver handy, but this will be disconnected right here because I've got to have this adapter to use on the Mustang and all. But the plan is, to just kind of tuck that up in there and have it where that fitting or that cable just kind of hangs out right there. And then the rest of it's tucked up in the dash. And if I ever need to adjust anything, or when I go to get a friend to help me with closed loop idle tuning, because that is still above my pay grade, we can just grab it, pull it out, and then it'll reach, no problem. Anyway, this is a fun project. I love this truck. Of course, been around it most of my life. Drove it a lot. This was what I drove for a while when I was 16 in high school. If my raggedy little Ranger that I bought or the old Chevy truck that my dad gave me was broken down, this was always old reliable. It's been a great truck, and we're just going to keep making it better and having fun. So, got another win on getting this truck going. Cruise works, and the brakes locking up was the master cylinder failed. It had been seeping a little bit, and we knew it, so we had a new master. We got it swapped out, bled the brakes, and she's as good as new. So now we have, got to check on the AC. It doesn't feel like the compressor's coming on, just the fan. But we are running on the standalone. Cruise works still. So, little stuff like that really makes me happy on a project like this. But I'm going back to work for a week or two at least, so it'll probably be a little while before we have any more updates on this one.
Thanks for watching.